Firstly, can you give us your reaction to the draw for the semi-finals of the League Cup? Southampton over 2 legs.
Yeah, tough game, but we're just pleased to be in it. Two-legged semi-final, we're looking forward to that. It's on the horizon for us, and I think it's given us a lot of positivity, and hopefully the whole club and the supporters a lot of positivity as well. But at the moment, our focus now turns to the Premier League.
Given the situation with Joe Linton, will he be available for you against Fulham on Sunday?
I'm going to have to reflect and analyse on that, and I'll make a decision closer to the game in consultation with him. And so I'm not 100% sure.
What about the rest of your squad? Have you got any new injuries? Any injured players closer to being back?
No, Matt Targett and John Joe Shelby continue the journeys back. I think they're both respectively doing well, but they're still some time away. Apart from that, I think we're pretty much okay. We've got a lot of the lone players at the moment that have picked up injuries out and about over the country, and Matty Longstaff just had his operation from his ACL, so we wish him well. We wish all those other lads well as well.
Just on Matty Longstaff, that's clearly a bad injury for him. It's probably a particularly bad point in his career. How are you supporting him given the nature of that injury?
Yeah, very difficult for any young player to pick up any serious injury. I think for Matty, it is bad timing for him. We certainly wish him well and hope he recovers fully. We will support him back to full fitness. There'll be no concerns there. I think it's our duty, and we want to do that for him. He's very much like his brother, an incredible lad in Newcastle through and through. So he's in good hands.
Just going back to the other night against Leicester, something you acknowledged after the game was Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak together in a squad for the first time, but they didn't play together because Isak came on for Wilson. Is that still an option for you, that they could be in the attack on the pitch at the same time, even if it means things have to be shuffled and changed around?
Of course, yeah, they could be on the pitch together. I think I have to evaluate every game and every situation that we face and try and balance the fact that you want potentially 2 attackers on the pitch, but you don't want to damage the balance of the team. So 2 outstanding players in their own right. Obviously, the game the other day, I decided to replace Callum again, nursing him back from a bad illness. But I thought Callum did well. I thought Alex did well. So I think both players, respectively, are looking good.
And you've been careful, haven't you, about the way that you've reintroduced Isak. How has he responded physically to the 45 minutes in the FA Cup and then the time on the pitch at the end against Leicester?
Yeah, he's responded very well physically. There's been no ill effects. He's trained well this week off the back of that cameo. I think we have to be very careful with him, just with the length of time that he's been out, the type of injury that he had. He's done all the work. He's looked in good condition. He looks confident. He's very keen to be involved, but I think we need him for the long term. And it's great to have a very strong choice at the centre forward unit at the moment.
And Fulham, your opponents on Sunday, beat Chelsea on Thursday night, last night in the Premier League. They're up to 6th. What did you make of that game if you watched it? And another impressive result for them. It's 4 wins in a row. Yeah,
they're very much in good form. I think Marco's done a very, very good job with the team. I'm very impressed with the style of play, so that they're not getting results by anything other than a very cohesive team unit, playing a lot of really good football. Tactically, they're very interesting, and they've got players in form, so dangerous attacking players from our perspective. So I think it'll be a good test of our defensive capabilities, and 2 very good teams and form teams going at each other.
And finally, thinking back to your last meeting with Fulham at the beginning of October, it was a big win for you, but probably a really significant result in your season, wasn't it? Because it was your 2nd Premier League victory. Yeah,
it was a huge game for us, looking back now. Potentially season defining for us, because we went there with good performances, but without the wins that we wanted. We felt that we needed a win very quickly to turn that good feeling and positivity into actually points. And that day we performed very well. Yes, they had a sending off early in the game, which potentially changed the feeling and dynamic of the game, but on the day I thought we played very well.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
Keith? Eddie, I guess the Joe Linton charge came out of the blue as a bit of a shock for you guys yesterday. How are you dealing with the situation? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, it came very much as a shock, and a difficult situation. Joe's very remorseful. He was very upset yesterday. I think he knows the seriousness of the situation. He obviously, I can't go into too much detail out of respect for the case, but I think he understands his responsibilities, and we're now in a position where we're supporting him, and we also understand as a football club the seriousness of the situation.
Yeah, you said a moment ago that a decision has to be made regarding Sunday and whether he is involved or not. Will a decision be have to be made as to whether the club punish him?
Well, everything will be dealt with internally. Certainly, looking at Joe as a person, I've said from day one with my interactions with him, he's a very, very good professional. He's hugely passionate about his football career and the club. And I was very much surprised by what happened. But we will back him and support him while also educating him and helping him at this moment, because I think that's hugely important. He's very young. Everyone makes mistakes. I think it's important now that we don't overreact as well.
Can I ask you about a player who's left on loan in the last 24 hours, Gareth Corral, gone up the road to Hearts? It sounded like there was a lot of teams after him. Why was it that Hearts were the team that was selected?
Well, I think it's very much, I think when you give a player an opportunity to go on loan, I think it's very much a personal choice. I think from a football club we can advise and give our opinion, but ultimately it's down to the player himself for what his feeling is and his gut feel is when he meets the manager and the coaches and visits the club, and that's what we did. We gave him an opportunity to go and visit people and see the environment, and Hearts was his choice, and we very much respect and back that.
And the goalkeeping situation, is it coming to a time where a decision will be made on that? You've obviously got the four there at the moment. Will one of them in some capacity have to leave before the end of the window?
I don't think have to leave, but I think we'll wait and see what happens with that situation. It's probably a lot of goalkeepers to have, and I think the key thing is you want your whichever position, every member of the squad to feel like they're valued and potentially playing a part in what you're doing. If that isn't the case for someone within that department, we'll look at it and try and help them.
Go on, Eddie. I'll get the left field question out of the way first. After Disco down on Tuesday night, if Newcastle were to make Wembley, if they were to win a trophy, what's the chance of seeing Eddie Howe repeat that bit of dancing?
I think I was asked the other night when and I think my answer was absolutely not. But only purely for the fact that Dan set such a high standard that I think I would fall well short of that. I don't know how he's got his body in those positions. I'm very much old school with my moves.
Fair enough. He's a good dancer. He's an even better footballer. Does Dan Burn get enough credit, do you believe, as a player and as a person as well?
Well, I think as a player, but potentially not. And I think he's probably suffered with that throughout his career, that he doesn't quite get the recognition that his performances deserve. I think certainly from just my experience with working him, I think he's a top player. Whether that's at centre half or at left back, he does the job very, very well. His leadership skills, I think, and his mentality are separate because very few people sort of see them. It's his teammates, it's his coaching staff, and the way he conducts himself on a daily basis, he's a true inspiration, I think, to us. He's Newcastle through and through. I think you can sense that, and I think that's an added bonus that we've got since he's come here. But I think his performance last Tuesday was excellent. I think possibly his best performance for us as a whole. Capped off by his goal.
There's an entire generation of Newcastle fans that wouldn't have seen the club in a semi-final. Just doing that lap of honour on Tuesday, what was it like for you to see those expressions, those faces of these people who wouldn't have seen Newcastle in this position before?
That was nice. It was a nice moment. I think those moments at the end of the games are they can either be very good or very bad. The extremes that you get sort of mirror the job as a manager. Really, it's very up and down. I always try and counter both emotions with the same thought process. You're either happy and pleased that you've accomplished what you aim to do and you're able to share it with your supporters, and in defeat you just want to thank them for being with you and sticking with the team.
I saw Joe Willock on Instagram saying that he wants to bring, or they want to bring, history back to Newcastle. I wondered, given the current league position, given the qualification for the semi-final, what that history could look for you this summer.
Yeah, difficult to know. I think we're very, very keen to keep achieving, and I think you can look too far ahead, which is why when I started the press conference, the first thought is Fulham, and that's all our thoughts are on at the moment. Southampton can wait, although it's on the horizon and it's given a really good feel. We have to focus on the Premier League and big games to come.
I was reading that it's 630 minutes now since Nick Pope last conceded a goal. Hopefully that hasn't jinxed it ahead of this weekend, but how testament is that to him, but to the entire team defensively as well?
Yeah, I think everyone deserves credit for it. Nick, the back four in front of him, and then the team in front of the back four. I think it has been a collective effort. I don't think you achieve statistics like that without all of those units functioning well. Nick certainly played his part. I mean, he's been, from day one here, I think he's been very, very good for us. Probably more in the other night against Leicester, he didn't have too much to do with his hands, but his positioning and reading balls over the top and at the highest level. Sometimes that goes unnoticed because it doesn't actually end up with him saving the ball. But I just think his all-round game management has been of a very good level.
Just finally on Fulham, like we've mentioned already, plenty of momentum for them coming into this one. But how do you as a manager use the high of Tuesday night, the momentum generated here at Newcastle on Sunday?
Yeah, I think the confidence that we would have gotten, the positivity from that game, we have to embrace and we have to use. But we always respect our opponent, and we'll do work on Fulham. We'll hopefully prepare the game well. They're a very good team. We're in good form. We don't underestimate them, but I think we have to, back at St James's Park, we have to again engage the crowd as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Nisha.
Hi Eddie, just reflecting a little bit more on that win on Tuesday. Was that the best moment for you since you've joined?
It'd be up there, yeah. I mean, I think there's been quite a few different moments where there's been a really good feeling of accomplishment. But certainly that'd be up there because we're getting to the latter stages of the competition. I think the semi-final's one thing now. When you're greedy, you're in the semi-final, you want to go that step further. So that's what we're focused on. We're not sort of praising ourselves. We're looking forward to what's ahead.
And you talked about, using the good feeling, the positivity from that win, but when there's so much talk, fans booking train tickets and the like for Wembley already, how do you keep that noise away from your players so that they can actually just fully focus on the game that's a couple of days away?
Yeah, I think the players are used to the schedule and they're used to the demands that they're placed upon. I think they know that you can't look ahead at games in the future. You just have to focus on every day in training and then the next game ahead of us. It's up for other people to do that. If they want to prepare certain things, then that's up to them. But for us, it's very much small steps, get the process of the game right, and stay very much in the moment and not look too far ahead.
And just finally, as we're approaching kind of the halfway point in January, just a few days off, is there any more signs from the hierarchy that there might be some incomings at the club?
No, we're working hard at the moment on staying very much in contact with the market and looking at players and doing a lot of work. But we're not imminently close to signing anybody. We're not actively bidding for players at the moment. It's a watching brief currently.
Sorry, just to follow on that, so if there is any movement, you expect it to come quite late in the window?
Well, certainly we're not close to anything now, so possibly.
Thank you.
No problem.
Simon? Hi Eddie. Been touched upon, but as you said, obviously the players have got to enjoy the move past what happened in the middle of the week. You kind of need the crowd to do that as well, don't you? Talk about booking tickets and that kind of thing. But you want them to come to this as an important game as well. And I suppose it's yours and the players' job to make that happen. Yeah,
I think the supporters will. I've got no doubt that they'll hopefully be in good spirits after Tuesday night. But knowing that the next game is always the biggest game, and that the Premier League has been really, really good for us so far this season. I think we've been very consistent, but every game gets harder and the challenge gets bigger. So we're going to need the supporters to be involved and engaged. And I think that's always down to us to set that from the first minute.
Okay, Jamie? Eddie, just going briefly back to Joe Linton. In general, do situations like that emphasise the need for discipline for professional athletes on and off the pitch?
Well, professionalism, I think, is the key and the heartbeat of every football club or every sporting organisation. You need your players to understand their roles, and not just players but staff and everyone connected with the club. So certainly it's an opportunity for us to do that again.
And just, you mentioned earlier about Fulham's attacking players, Alexander Mitrovic, well known and well liked up here. Is it as much about stopping the supply lines to him as it is stopping him?
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think with any striker or focal point of a team, if you can stop the supply, then you have an opportunity maybe to keep him quieter than normal. He's had an outstanding season. He's played very, very well. He's got unique strengths, and unique strengths that are sometimes impossible to stop. You know, kicks from the goalkeeper and his robust play. There will always be those moments in the game. So he's going to be in the game. It's up to us to defend well, and try and counteract his obvious gifts that he has.
Jordan, you mentioned after the game on Tuesday that Alan St Maximin still feeling the effects of his illness. Is he over that now in contention for Sunday?
Yeah, no, Maxi came on and I thought he did very well. So yeah, no, he's fine.
I think you mentioned previously about sort of the lack of squad depth that you may have at the club. In January, is it tough to build a squad, and you probably look towards the summer to try and build that squad? Obviously, you've only got 4 weeks in January, but you've got obviously a longer period over the summer. Yeah,
I think the bigger challenge for January is it's not the ideal time to recruit. There's a much smaller pool of players available. Potentially prices are higher as well because there's a smaller availability. Not many teams want to make drastic changes to their squad, so that's why the recruitment in that month can sometimes be very difficult. Now, last year I thought we did exceptionally well in a difficult month, but this year we're in a different position, so we want to add real quality to the group if we're going to do anything. So it's very much got to be the right player.
Thank you. Ian?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
In the past, you talked about needing at some stage to address the age profile of the squad. Your outstanding back five, I think 4 of them are over 30. Is that any sort of a concern, or can you see them on block for 2-3 more seasons?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think we need to review continually. Looking too far ahead, 2-3 seasons, that's a long way down the line. I think teams naturally evolve. So no team, Premier League team, very rarely stays the same year on year. So you'll naturally evolve and change and try and improve. I think that back 4 that you say, or back 5, has been very, very consistent for us. The challenge for all those players is to maintain their consistency of performance and to keep their place in the team.
How much is it the defensive solidity you've now got down to the personnel, and how much is it down to tactics, training, etc.? And would it be easy to just slip one person? Because it'd be largely unchanged all season. Have you got a system in place now where someone else could come in and you would see very little change?
Difficult question to answer that. I can't predict what would happen. I always think it's a mixture of lots of different things. When you're successful, I don't ever think it's down to one thing. So the players undoubtedly done superbly well in that unit. I think they built a good feeling around each other as well, on and off the pitch. I think the system and style of play is important as well, but probably not as important as the individuals around it. So I haven't got a crystal ball, so it's difficult to answer, but I think from a coach's perspective, you would hope that you can take a couple of changes and things wouldn't change too drastically, but that's not always the case.
Thanks, Eddie.
Lee?
Eddie, the Sheffield game's now gone. You replaced that with the high of the Leicester game. Do you sometimes learn more from a defeat than you do in victory?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you have the pain of defeat, the analysing process, the review that you go through, you can sometimes learn valuable lessons. I thought, we learnt lessons from the Sheffield Wednesday game, things that will help us going forward. You make assessments of players every day, whether that's training or a game. So it was painful. It did hurt. It still hurts now. I don't think that will ever go. Very much like the Cambridge defeat. But you have to move on very quickly, and you have to focus on the future because you can't change that result now.
And I guess if there is a positive from it, you have got that sort of free hit of the 2 League Cup games now, whereas Southampton have got the Cup game in the middle, so I suppose that's the benefit.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one to look at it as a benefit, but I do get what you mean. It gives us time to prepare for both games, but I think from my perspective we'd have preferred an FA Cup game in there as well.
Can I just ask one on transfers? Cause I guess everyone in this room's got agents ringing them up, pushing them in there. But one of them's Scott McTominay, and it's like people are saying that there's been a loan inquiry submitted. I just wanted to check that one out, and then on the back of that ask if the loan market is something you would be looking at in this window.
Yeah, no, that's not true. The loan market is always a big option for us, but I think getting the right player on loan is very difficult.
Okay.
So I want to see that.
Craig?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
When it comes to selecting Joe Linton or otherwise on somebody, what factors will be taken into consideration?
Lots of different ones. I don't want to go into too much detail with it, but lots of things go into selection of every player for me. Obviously, this is a slightly different situation, but certainly my relationship with Joe is very good, and I will be have sat down with him. I will be sitting down with him again and having a chat with him, and ultimately have to pick the best team to win the game. That's my job, but obviously taking into account the situation around that.
Does he want to play?
Undoubtedly, yes, yeah.
Luke?
Just a couple on Bruno Guimaraes. Were you aware that he was voted North East Player of the Year this week, and what does that say about the impact he's had on the team over the last 12 months?
Luke, I wasn't aware of that.
He voted for him, it was actually us.
Football Right.
Oh, okay. I wasn't.
We're very wise.
Well, very wise, because it's a very good choice, and I heard you on the radio recently, and I thought you were very good, actually.
That was a very wise choice to listen to.
It wasn't by choice. I flicked on it and then flicked off it very quickly.
That's the nicest thing anyone's said.
It's never off it, to be fair.
Sorry, what was your question?
I've lost
Bruno.
the train of thought.
Yeah.
Bruno, yeah.
No,
What
he
sort
was.
of impact had the last 12 months?
He's incredible impact on the team, and off the pitch as well. I don't think it's just on it. I think he's embraced everything around Newcastle. You can see a few situations, goals he scored, celebrations he's given the supporters, the tackle at Leicester when he reacts. Yeah, he's such a passionate guy. He wants to win. He wants to do well. Right from the first minute when he turned up and really tried to buy into speaking English, and I can't speak highly enough of how he's tried to adapt to Newcastle and what he's done on and off the pitch.
You hope a player's going to hit the ground running, don't you? But the speed with which he adapted has been quite remarkable, really.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, he obviously took a while to get into the team, so I think from his perspective, he was very keen to show everyone what he could do. But there was a period where we held him back, and we think that was the right thing to do for him. Then we let him off the leash, and he hasn't looked back from that moment, really, and he scored some vital goals for us. I think the players really, really like him as well, and I think that's hugely important. He's part of the team. He's not bigger than the team, which, when you have a player of his profile, is hugely important for me.
Thank you.
Okay. Kieran?
Hi, Eddie. Has Joe Linton addressed the group at all since the incident?
No, he hasn't addressed the group, and that's not something I'd necessarily put pressure on him to do. That's all personal choice. But the players absolutely love Joe, and I think that is possibility. There is a possibility I'll give him that opportunity, but I do think it's down to the individual.
And given how strong the group is, are you confident it won't have a destabilising effect?
No, well, I don't think so. As I sit here now, I don't think it will. I think it possibly. In these times, we have to be stronger together rather than become fractious and for it to give us problems. I will reiterate that we understand the seriousness of the situation, but I think we have to support Joe as well.
Okay, Scott?
Eddie, on the transfer front, you've said there about kind of adding quality and potentially addressing certain issues, and that will change from window to window. The issues obviously change, and yet you've also got the transfers like Garan, where presumably that isn't really dependent on the squad. It's bringing in a young player from wherever, and you've been linked with potentially other transfers like that. Those type of deals, is that something the club are looking to do, window on window on window, and if you like, that's almost separate from addressing issues that arise window to window?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think definitely there's a want from the club to sign young players, develop young players, not just sign young players, develop young players within our academy, and a real shift and focus to youth. So I think there will possibly be more deals done where younger players come in, go into the academy setting and develop behind the scenes or go on loan. and develop their careers, and then with a view to hopefully at one stage coming into us, the first team environment. I think for me, it's I've only have so much time to develop. So much time to look at targets and to really focus on what we need now. So that it's sort of separate from my remit. This is more of a club thing that goes on behind the scenes with scouts, and Dan Ashworth will lead that. For me, it's all about the first team. So, but I certainly back that idea. I think it's important that we do try and sign some of the best young talents around the world, while also what's key for me is developing our own players here at Newcastle.
Okay, Miles.
You mentioned Matt Targett and John Joe Shelby earlier. Have you got any clearer idea on the timescales for those two?
They were around six weeks, I think, for both players was the original timeline. I don't think it's changed drastically from that, but obviously that's the thing that is ongoing.
Have you got any more of a, against the backdrop of injuries, more of a fixed idea of what you need or want in this window?
In terms of positions, you mean?
Yeah.
I think we're looking at all positions. I know that's not the answer you want, but we are very much casting our eye over all positions, because things can change so quickly. So yeah, there's possibly one or two areas of the squad that I would look at and go that we're probably lighter in that area than others, but as always I like to keep these things internal.
Simon?
Morning, Eddie. Just a last one on Joe Linton. You mentioned there might be some form of education for him. What might that look like, and would it include speeding and texting at the wheel and that kind of thing for the whole squad maybe? Yeah,
possibly. I think, like for all of us as humans, I think you can never educate yourself enough on these things, and certainly I don't claim to be an expert on this area. So I think for all the squad, I think it's a time to maybe do that.
Yeah, and the other thing is we've talked a lot about players who might come into the club. This club has never been particularly good at selling players, apart from the Perez deal, which is a good one a few years ago. Is that something which you will address this month, or would it be more of a reshape in the summer, where you've got a lot of wages going out of people who are on loan and people who are still here who aren't really getting used?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge desire in me to sell anyone this window, but there's always it depends on what's presented to you. So you could have an idea that you want to keep the whole group together, and you get something comes left field that you think, the club thinks that's a good deal to do. Certainly my intention is to try and develop what we have rather than lose anybody. I don't think that we're at the stage necessarily where we're overloaded with numbers or overloaded with quality. I think it's that's my intention as I sit here now.
Okay, Louise?
Have you spoken to the owners, particularly the Saudis, about Joe Linton? And if, this is a hypothetical question, if they said, right, drop him, teach him a lesson, would that be a red line for you? I mean, would you want autonomy in that situation, or would you follow what you were told essentially?
Of course we've had discussions. We're very open with our communication to events that happen at the football club. I think that's only right. So nothing, the latter part of your question, nothing's gone beyond just an explanation and sort of saying what's happened and how we're going to deal with it, and everything then is left in my hands.
Okay. And is he your first player to be arrested as a manager?
Someone get that man a drink in there. I actually can't remember. I possibly think he is, but someone might tell me differently. I'm not sure.